What's up guys, it's Linear Fan of Stuff to you, and today, I know I posted one video earlier today, but I was so excited because I wanted to post this video tomorrow, but I got a bit too excited. This is one of the coolest combos that I have been able to figure out, and I'm so excited to share it because it's so stupidly broken that I am not really sure kind of what to think about it. It's pretty insane. This is a Super Heavy Samurai Springans 1.5 card FTK, and there's a couple of things about it that make it much better than normal FTKs. Now when you think about an FTK, the first thing you think about is one, inconsistency, hard to pull off. You know, you need very specific cards. If you look at the Telefon FTK, you're like, you need machine dupe and Telefon, or you gotta do like a lot of drawing shenanigans, and you know, there's some luck sack that involves in it, but generally, when you're talking about FTKs, consistency is one of the big problems with it. You need certain things, and the consistency is a big issue. Second thing that's a problem with FTK is the ability to play through things like hand traps or whatever. Once your opponent realizes you're going for an FTK, they're going to try to stop certain plays, or when you're going into your comboing, they're going to try and stop certain plays. So FTKs are generally weak at being able to play through these kind of interruptions. So that makes it a little bit rough as well. And the third problem with FTKs is the amount of cards you need to be able to pull off the FTK. A lot of FTKs take 2, 3, 4 cards. Maybe they're very specific. It kind of works, it kind of goes in tandem with consistency, but at the same time, in general, it's a different pseudo problem kind of, because the FTK is necessitating certain things that are difficult to get. Now the reason why this is so crazy, this combo, is that it bypasses all these restrictions. Everything that the FTKs normally have trouble with, this does not have trouble with, and it's wild. This FTK is extremely consistent. The FTK has many different types of hands that can play through hand traps. The FTK does not require a lot of specific cards because it's literally one card. Like, you need one pseudo-specific card to be able to pull off this FTK. Now, if you look at it, it is a super heavy samurai deck, so you're not really playing any spell and traps. But the thing is, so you can't play like Prosperity or whatever, and you need a lot of your extra deck to be able to pull it off. But the thing that makes this FTK so crazy is that there's so much redundancy in your deck. There's so many like things that do the same thing in your deck that pulling off the FTK becomes extremely easy. You have 12 starters in your deck. You have a 40 card deck, you have 12 starters. You have 3 wagon, you have 3 of the level 4 pendulum, you have 3 bike, and you have 3 soul piercer. And any of those, you open one of them, and you have at least one other card in your hand. If your opponent doesn't have a way to interrupt your plays, you just win, you FTK. On top of that, if they delay their interruptions slightly too long, you win anyways, because the FTK has self-contained protection because you go for Baron. And on top of that, you're still playing super heavy samurais with all the new support, so if for some reason a part of the FTK gets stopped, you just go into super heavy samurai plays that are extremely powerful. So let's start this off. We're going to start off with wagon. This combo, we're doing it starting with wagon, but if you started with soul piercer, it works just as well. If you start with bike, it works just as well. If you start with the pendulum monster, it works just as well. You would do the exact same thing I'm doing here, just in a different order depending on which one you opened, and regardless of which one you opened, you just go off anyways. And so the idea here is, because we're all machines, we're going to be taking advantage of the fact that Telefon and Cannon Soldier are all machines, so we get to search them with Gear Gigantacks. And as you can see here, our 7th summon is Baron, which basically means now our opponent can no longer Nibiru us, and we can negate any hand trap or impermanence. So if our opponent didn't decide to hand trap anything early because they were trying to take care of whatever is happening or try to figure out what the deck's doing, well, they would lose right now. Anyway, so now we're going to go Pen 4, Gear Gigantacks, the first one. We're going to search Telefon, and now we're going to go into our Springans play. This is where the Springans twist comes in really nicely, because the Springans give you access to a lot of extra monsters for basically free, because Springans Talio is one of the most broken cards in the game, and so you're able to go off with that stuff. And also Sargus is insanely good with this combo. As you can see, we just bounced back our level 4 pendulum monster from the zone back to our hand, and we're going to be using it to summon again afterwards. And here we get our second Telefon out because we summoned the first one with Platinum Gadget. We blow up the Platinum Gadget with Baron, then we get out Gold Gadget, who brings out the monster we rebounced back. We get to go for Cannon Soldier, and it's just so much comboing, and everything just works together so well in this deck. What's really cool is that, okay, what sucks about the deck in a way is that your extra deck space is pretty limited, but because you're playing super heavy samurais and you don't really have space for spell and traps, you have a lot of space in your side deck that you can kind of use to swap out extra deck monsters, and your deck kind of spams really hard anyways and plays decently through interruptions, so it's not like your deck is completely worthless unless it can pull off the FTK like some other decks do. But here we're just pulling off the Telephon FTK. We're just Telephon, Reborn, Telephon, Cannon Soldier, Telephon, Reborn, Telephon, Cannon Soldier, and it's insane. At this point too, your Telephons are protected because you have a Link Karibo in your grave, so Veiler and Impermanence wouldn't do anything. And obviously you also have Baronne, so the first one would get negated. You have so much redundancy in the deck that it's very difficult to just say, okay, well, it's inconsistent or whatever, because over a quarter of your deck is the FTK on its own, and you start with 5 cards in your hand. The deck just does some wild, insane things, some really cool FTK potential. I'm going to try to come up with like another version of the FTK because I saw an interesting card in Super Heavy Samurais that really it got me thinking, you know, it got me thinking. So maybe there's another way to do this kind of FTK where you're running a couple lefts of bricks. But what's really cool about this one is that it doesn't matter you have bricks because it only takes 1 card in your hand. And as long as you can also set up your pendulum scales, it also doesn't matter if your opponent stops your early plays, because let's say they stop your early plays, but you still manage to get out your scales of 8 and 1. You haven't really commit any cards from your hand. You still have 3 monsters, or you still have at least 3 monsters in your hand. Plus you have whatever you searched, so you have at least like 4 monsters in your hand, and you just pendulum summon them all and you go off anyways, and you just go into other plays. Maybe you go into Saryuja for 4 and start drawing and looking for an out. Yeah, it's a little luck sack, but the point is that they had to use stuff to negate your effects, and now you're still able to go off, which is absolutely wild. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This combo is absolutely disgusting. I'm going to see if maybe I can come out with some other versions of this for Super Heavy Samurais, especially with the Springans engines just spiced in there. I want to give a quick shout out at the end to, again, I feel like I do this every fucking video, but I got the idea from Yesin's video where he showed Super Heavy Samurais, and I was trying to build up on Springans, and so I tried to combine the 2 engines, and I found, while testing through it, that you can actually get to this sort of disgusting degeneracy. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.